No.
Hi, I'm Lou, another episode of My Car Story. I'm here with Bob Joynt. Now, I want to set this up a little bit here. Number one, the first time I met you was because of your wife, Sheila. She was talking about you at a car show dinner, and she was in line next to me, and she was telling me about this fabulous guy she's married to who knows everything about cars. And I said,
well, I certainly can't argue with that, but possibly she was slightly exaggerating.
So I said, who is this magnificent guy? Please let me meet him. And you and I met. And we ended up taking a ride in my wife's car and having a great time.
Right, yeah, wonderful Jaguar.
Yeah, thanks. But Bob, give me a little bit of history. You're the MC at the Geneva Concourse, but as far as car judging...
as far as judging goes, I'm a judge at Amelia Island Concourse.
Amelia Island Concourse.
I judge at the Pebble Beach Concourse.
And you started when you were 28, you shared with me.
Well, I started actually judging when I was about 18 or 19. And you know, you kind of work your way up through the judging ranks, and ultimately I became chief judge of the Auburn Court-Duesenberg Club, and then I was invited to judge at Pebble Beach, and so I do quite a bit of judging, but the last few years I'm doing more and more MC work at the concourse events.
And humbly, he's judging at the finest cars that you've ever seen. So with all that being said, Bob, you're also you do tours in Chicago about the architecture. You have a time period. When's your time period?
I think
expertise.
My time period really runs from about 1900 to 1950.
Okay.
I think that first 50 years of the 20th century are my favorite time period for architecture, music, art, everything.
And of those time periods, the car we're going to see was maybe the most fabulous during that time.
It was. It's a 1920 Locomobile, which at the time was the most expensive car in the world.
The most expensive car in the world, the Locomobile. What was the price of a new Locomobile in 1920?
Well, for the one that I have, the price was just around $10,000, which, you know, it doesn't sound like, it sounds like buying a Pinto today, but $10,000 was equivalent to a couple houses at that time.
Exactly. So you're going to see that car. And how did you acquire this car?
Well, I saw the car. I started going to museums and going to meets when I was about 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I saw this Locomobile in a roadside museum in Michigan when I was 11 years old. And I kept in contact with the people and the owners for 41 years. This was a long wait on this one, Lou. And ultimately, after the gentleman passed away, his son sold it to me.
Yeah. Because
he knew that I'd been interested in it and talking to his parents, and he said, "You're the guy that should own the car next."
And I remember you said when he purchased it, he was
very emotional about the car because his father at one time had a museum and he had probably 75 cars. But he had always liked this one the best of the bunch.
And Bob, I'm emotional about this car. I've put everything to the side today just to make sure that I get this car because you told me so much about it, I've become fond of the car. So today, on a perfect day, you're getting the chance to view the car. Let me grab the camera as I usually do. Bob, you're going to come out with me.
All right, sounds good.
Come on over with me, and here is the Locomobile. Come on, right next to me because the microphone's right here, and let's take a look at your car. Wow. And this is I mean, where do you start with this? Obviously, we're starting at the front.
I mean, the Locomobile, as I mentioned, was an extremely expensive car and built in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Their motto was the best built car in America. What you start out with is the chassis. And the chassis, of course, is very large, 142-inch wheelbase. It's got 21-inch wheels on it. But under the hood is where things get quite exciting. It's a 525 cubic inch T-head motor, which I suspect we'll be looking at here shortly.
Oh yeah.
Originally,
let's even talk about this. We've got brass bumpers here.
Well, the whole car is brass trim. Now, normally, the last brass cars supposedly were 1915.
Okay.
The Locomobile offered brass up through the mid-20s on their cars because a lot of their clients were conservative, but this was originally built as a show car. The brass went with the original color was a chocolate. The original color was a deep chocolate brown.
Come on with me, Bob. We're going to walk back and see it. Keep going.
It had, I'd say, yellow, a very bright yellow leather in it. And you can imagine the brass with chocolate brown and yellow leather. It was all color coordinated, and as I say, it was a show car, probably at the Salon Show in New York.
It took a while to get to. It even took us a while to get to the chance to video it. We've got the wood spokes. I'm just going to do that to make it easy.
The wheels in the car are hickory, which is a very hard wood. You're going to notice too, Lou, that the front wheels the spokes are thinner than the rear wheels.
Really?
The rear wheel
take a look.
spokes are much thicker. The reason for that is the car only has brakes on the rear wheel.
Ah.
So the braking is all done on the rear wheels. It's two-wheel brakes, but it has internal bands for your foot pedal, and it has external bands on the outside of the drum for the emergency brakes. So you've got braking on both sides of the... They're absolutely huge, the brakes on it, because the car weighs way over 6,000 pounds.
And let me, what are all the little compartments? I mean, we got compartment next to compartment.
This compartment here is to get to a grease fitting on the spring.
Okay.
So this is and literally they've made this nice little door so you could grease the car.
And then you've got this beautiful
and then you
jewel-like light.
This is crystal by Tiffany. The Tiffany Jewelers did the headlights on the car and the instruments and these lights here.
Look at the brass all here on the running board. And
as I say,
what are the other compartments?
All right,
here?
this compartment holds some of the tools, and everything is what I would call industrial strength about this car. Here are some of the fine tools that come with a Locomobile. Now, it had originally quite a large set of tools, but these are just some of them that are still left with the car. And then in the next compartment, you have the jack and some other just miscellaneous. Here's the original jack, and then you've got
a feature.
It has a crank, which is rather hilarious because the engine is 525 cubic inches. There's virtually no way you could crank this car without breaking your arm.
Yeah.
But you use this for if you're timing the motor. That's really why they included a crank, is for just timing the engine.
Okay. All right. And let me just feature, I want to feature that jack before, let's keep that open for just a second. I want to feature that original.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful. And we're going to take our time giving you all the detail there on that. All right.
So that's the compartments.
While we're here,
yeah.
Let's obviously open the engine compartment. Tell me about these lights as well.
Well, these are the parking lights on the car. The body on the car, why don't we talk about the body a little bit, because the body is really kind of the story here. You had a very expensive chassis.
Okay.
142-inch wheelbase, huge engine. Locomobile did not build bodies. They farmed that out to custom coach building companies.
Okay.
This particular body was built in Boston by the Farnham and Nelson Company. It was designed by Locomobile's internal design department, but Farnham and Nelson executed the design. The design was done by J. Frank de Cause. He was the gentleman who they brought him from Paris to really design exotic bodies. What's really special about the body on this car, and it was a very rare even when it was new, it's the first Dual Cowl Phaeton in history. And J. Frank de Coste designed the first one. They built the first example of this in 1916. This is 1920. They built these for 10 years. They offered this body style, and they built about 2 to 3 a year.
Wow.
So there may have been a total of 25 of these cars built with this particular body. There are 4 of them.
Show me, what does dual cowl mean? I mean,
now, what dual cowl means, a cowl is what your windshield sits on. So here's your front cowl.
Okay.
Nice little curve in the cowl, and then you got your front windshield. Then you have a second cowl. Right here, the second cowl also has the same kind of a curve as the front one does, and then you have a second windshield.
Gotcha.
Now, what this does is it helps keep the wind off the people in the back seat. There are no windows in this car, but it's also considered extremely stylish, particularly in the 1920s and 30s to have this type of a design. It's not the most practical setup in the world because, first of all, you can't open the doors because the cowl wraps right over the door.
Okay.
So what this car originally had is you had a chauffeur that drove the car, and then you had a footman that sat up here. This is going back to like carriage days. The footman got out, and then to get the people out of the car, you lower this windshield, you raise this panel, and then the door handles are inside. There's no outside door handles, and then the people come out of the car. Now you'll notice
I just want to feature that too because it's
got
beautiful.
beautiful wood cabinetry in here.
It's beautiful in here. This is part of the top.
This is part of the top.
Tell me about that back window. Looks like something from Tiffany.
Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? It's
fantastic.
it is a beveled glass.
Look at this. Look at the carriage top on the inside there, and even on the outside.
And then if you look down here, you'll
yeah.
see here's the Farnham and Nelson Company, Boston, who are the people who built the body on the car.
Yeah. And you get a
And then you have a footrest, and because the body is so low, this is an extremely low-slung car for 1920. There's an ad for this exact car from 1921 showing this exact model.
Wow.
And even you'll notice it even has brass lights and stuff on it.
Yeah.
So
We shall keep the
you
faith.
see how this was really very fashionable.
Is this another one?
Yeah, same exact.
Same picture. Okay. All right.
So it's not practical, but it's very stylish. Now, if you want to go more than about 25 miles an hour with this, and most people want to go more than 25 with a Locomobile, you have to lower the top.
Okay.
The top is a reverse air dam. If you look at it,
Yeah, all
it's a
right.
complete.
Catch
It's
your.
a reverse of aerodynamics. But again, this was considered very fashionable, and this all comes from the carriage days.
Gotcha.
Carriages in the 1800s had setups like this.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the front while you're talking. But go ahead.
Okay,
Let's open that for me if we could.
the front
Opens this way. Okay.
Opens this way again. You have Farnham and Nelson Company here on all the doors.
Tell me about. I want to get all the gauges. I saw you moved this for your choke.
This is the choke right here. It's all machined into the
into the
steering
steering
column.
wheel.
Is where the choke is. This is a gas where you pump up your gas pressure for the car.
Okay.
This is a magneto control for magnetos. It used to have 2 magnetos on it. Today I have a modern ignition system in it that's reliable. And you have, this is your oil pressure. You have the voltmeter for the ammeter, clock. What? You have a clock, speedometer, odometer. That's gas pressure gauge over there. There's no gas gauge on the car. You just simply have to pull it over about every 100 miles and put gas in it. The car gets around 5 miles to a gallon. And they figured if you could afford to buy the car, you could put gas in it.
Gotcha.
These are all different lights and starter and other things in this setup here.
And your pedals look fairly standard.
Yeah, everything's fairly standard there. It has it has a 4-speed transmission in it.
This is your emergency brake?
That's the emergency brake.
Okay.
And notice it's right in the way of the door. The door is a complete phony because you can't get in or out of the door.
Okay.
The other thing about the body is much lower than the normal Locomobile. Locomobiles normally sat up higher. This is a super sport model.
Okay.
And because it's so low, they had to lower the steering gear in the car to get the steering wheel down on it. And the seats in this car remind me of like a 120 Jaguar, like an English sports car. You're actually sitting down on the floor,
Okay.
looking down the hood. Now, normally on a Locomobile, you sit up so high you look down onto the hood. This one, you look down the hood because you sit so low. The windshield's only 9 inches high,
Yeah.
which is incredibly low for a car from 1920. But it's a very, very much a sports vehicle.
Let me take a look at the back of it. Because people will be thinking, Lou, are you finally going to get to the back of the car?
This was a symbol of Locomobile were dual spare tires. You could get spare tires for the fenders, but most Locomobiles had 2 spare tires on the back end, and then they had the lights. Again, these are by Tiffany's. The lights hung off of these rods that hold this assembly all together.
Wow.
And then you have the gas gauge back here on the gas tank. There's the gas gauge. And of course you have this huge filler. It's all manganese bronze. Everything's bronze on this car.
Wow. How many gallons does it take?
The gas tank holds 30, which gives it a range of 150 miles before you're out of gas.
That's not too bad.
It's not too good either.
Okay, let's take a look at...
Let's look at the motor.
Yeah, we'll look at both sides of the motor. Let me get that little bit going.
This is wonderful. This is, it says styled by DeCoste. He's the designer of the car. And he was so proud of this body style. Again, the first dual cowl Phaeton in history that he put his own tag on it, just so there'd be no question who designed this car.
Wow.
Now the engine is a T-head, and
Can we open the other side at the
Yes,
same
yes,
time,
we
just so we
can.
can get a little more light in there?
yes, we can.
I'm gonna feature some of the... And it had that wood piece in there too, huh, Bob? Yeah, that gets a little more light in there. Oh, that's great. Go ahead, tell me about it.
The engine is a T-head, which is a very early engine design. It has twin cams. It's got dual cams in it, but the camshafts are down inside the block rather than up on top. And each cylinder is cast in pairs of 2. You have 2 spark plugs for each cylinder, because the extra plug fires 7 degrees off of top dead center, which gives it a little extra power on your downstroke.
Look at
The block in here is manganese bronze. It's a solid bronze block, and
These are bronze carburetors
yeah,
too, right?
it's a bronze carburetor. The
my
transmission
gosh.
is solid bronze, including the gears and the case. I had to have the
Come on,
transmission.
let's look at the other side while we're
I had
talking.
to have the transmission pulled out of it a few years ago when a bolt broke inside it, and we actually had to use an engine lift to get the transmission out of the car. The transmission weighs what an engine normally weighs in a car. So I mean,
Wow.
it's and then here you go. This is a manifold heater that helps heat the carburetor.
Okay.
And you got a little oil can here, and the fuse box is a lovely little thing. You open this up, and there's your little fuses for the car.
Okay.
You'll notice the fan is solid aluminum. It's an aluminum casting that's all been machined.
Let's make sure we close that.
What you see all over the car is the fact there's lots of bronze and there's lots of aluminum in this car.
Yeah.
And that is
It's
what
amazing.
And of course you got this beautiful brass. That's your water distribution tube. And then you have these little petcocks here to pour gas straight into the cylinders.
To help start it
To
if
help
needed.
start it, and if it's cold out, you would pour gas straight into the cylinders.
Let's start it.
Okay.
Can we keep the hood open while we start, or will it shake?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yep,
What's this on the front here?
This is an emblem for the Good Roads movement from Southern California. It's the Automobile Club of Southern California. The Good Roads movement was the way we got roads developed and paved in the United States. It's a movement that started around 1910. And it literally was a nationwide clubs and groups and communities that got together to encourage the construction of highways. Because there were no highways really outside of the cities.
Yeah.
So and obviously increasing the highways increased the sales of cars. So the auto manufacturers were certainly behind it also, because you really needed to be able to roll on the countryside if you were going to really use a car for cross-country trips. So you needed roads.
Got it. Let's start her up.
Let's
There's-
fire her up
there's
and
the-
see what happens.
there's the look
Stand back,
again.
Will. You never know what's going to happen here.
1920. 95-year-old car. exhaust note.
Yeah,
You're going to say something.
The engine is a 90 horsepower, which in 1920 was a huge,
That's a massive amount
amount of horsepower. You're talking, most cars had around 35, 40 horsepower. This has 90 horsepower, and you can hear it in the exhaust system on it.
Let me go get a little note. Oh yeah. Hey Bob, let's shut her off and put the hood down. I wanna just say thanks for being on My Car Story. We'll actually do a take 2 video, but we'll actually take it for a ride.
Okay.
So let's.
I want to just conclude about how most look.
Please.
The reason there are very few, first of all, they built very few cars because they were so expensive, but the scrappage of these cars during World War II was unbelievable because the scrapyards wanted to get their hands on all the bronze and the aluminum that were. The body is aluminum. You see there's aluminum castings everywhere, there's bronze everywhere. And these cars, for the most part, I'll bet 90% of them that were left were melted down during World War II to provide war materials. And so there's the survival rate. I think that this is the big Model 48, which was their supercar they brought out in 1911. They made it until 1928 when the company basically went out of business. But the survival of these cars is there's maybe 75 total worldwide that are left.
Wow.
And of this body style, there's 3.
Wow.
So.
Well, Bob, yeah, let's close that.
Close her up.
We'll close her up. I've been waiting to video your car. We waited for the right day, and let's shut the other side of the hood too.
Perfect weather, Lou.
Yeah, perfect day, perfect car. I even know where I want you to stand. Stand with one hand right up here, and I want to get that Locomobile logo with you next to it, and that beautiful right there.
How's that?
That looks great. Let me get that Locomobile one more time because you're not going to see that too often. Hey Bob, thanks for being on My Car Story.
Lou, my pleasure.